Hi there, my name is Ian Rogers, and we are joined today with Ledger's CTO Charles Guillemet to talk specifically about Ledger and open source. It seems, we see comments about open source often that comes kind of in the form of FUD and in replies, comments on Twitter and YouTube. So, we wanted to create definitive information about our open source strategy, the architectural choices that we've made, which we believe, are superior to others and the other choices that have been made in the marketplace. Explain really clearly why we've made those choices and why we feel that they are, architecturally and from a security perspective superior. And and hope that this pushes forward the conversation beyond simply FUD. I think that I think it's factual, and this is something that Ledger has commented on for many years. That people with less secure architecture choices try to justify those choices with FUD, and it's important to have the information out there so that you, the user, the individual, can do your own research and make the best choices. So, Charles, thank you for joining us to talk about this hot issue.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get into the details and explaining our choices and how we are seeing the philosophy around open source. I want to be very definitive about one specific point. I love open source. Ledger loves open source. There was no debate about that. Open source is great. There was plenty of good, and in terms of philosophy, this is really some ethos that we share at Ledger.
Absolutely. And for me as well. I mean, I studied computer science in the early 90s and spent a lot of time on Usenet debating, the benefits of open source software as far back as that. So we are open source software proponents. So maybe let's start there. Saying that, that we as Ledger are open source software proponents, why isn't 100% of our code open source? And how much is and what isn't?
First of all, we are developing open platforms, allowing developers to develop on our platforms. And this is not exactly the same as open source, but having open platforms allows developer to build on top of your platform. And this is already something in terms of openness that is really important and really good. We are doing these open platforms with Ledger Live. If you are a DApp developer, you can discuss with our teams in order to integrate your DApp within Ledger Live pretty easily. Also, we have platforms when it comes to the blockchain support. With Ledger Live, you can manage a large number of tokens and native tokens. Also, we are supporting plenty of different blockchain, and in order to support these blockchains, we have created an open platform, and we are very happy when a foundation is willing to build the support of the blockchain on Ledger Live, and this is something that we are trying to make as easy as possible. And all of this is open, like it's an open platform, but it's also open source. Like all the code is on our GitHub, and you can have a look. You can do pull requests. You can open issues. We are working in a completely open manner when it comes to Ledger Live. What you like with open source is you go on GitHub. You start to look at the code. You start to study everything, and then you clone the repository. And locally, maybe you will want to modify it. Maybe you will want to audit it, and so on. And when you are happy with it, you will compile it and run it. If it's a C language or if it's a language that is compiled, but you have the code locally and you can run it directly on your machine. When it comes to hardware, it's a little bit more difficult to do that because you have the GitHub, you have audited it, and then if you really want to run this specific code. You have some difficulty. If you really consider the hardware itself, the circuit, if you have the source code of the circuit, what we call the RTL, you will be able to edit it, to synthesize it. This is the hardware equivalent of the compilation. But then when you have the circuit corresponding to this RTL, you have no way to be sure that this is the same code running in the circuit, except if you have a fab, like something to actually build the circuit at home, which doesn't exist, obviously. You can't really have this kind of guarantee. So you have some kind of trust around what is inside this hardware, and when you load code inside this hardware, how can you be sure that the code that you have loaded inside this hardware is the one that you compiled at the first place? This part is really tricky, and making things open source do not completely help at the end. So what we have done at Ledger when we started to build devices, starting with the Neo S, let's say, we thought that the most important thing was to create like very secure devices. The security is really what makes Ledger different from the rest of the ecosystem. And in order to build those very secure devices, we start to think what's the best way today to build secure devices. So we thought that the first thing is to create a separate hardware, a dedicated hardware. You can't have your wallet running on your computer where you have also plenty of games, plenty of browser and so on. If you do that, you won't be able to do something very secure. So the idea was really to create a dedicated device. So that's how Ledger was born. And when it comes to creating this device, we thought, what's the best technology to build secure devices? When you work in this industry, in security in general, you know that having a security device that are completely dedicated to security is the best way to do. And what you do is pretty simple. You think about your application, the problem you want to solve, and you try to split everything that is only security and key related from what is application related. So you split those two things, and you put the key management, the cryptography inside a secure element, like a dedicated circuit for that. And the rest of the application is running on the rich operating system. And those two systems are communicating. And even if your application is completely hacked, the attacker cannot do anything because all the cryptography and the secrets are inside this little smart card based technology. As
a quick history lesson, because I think that the choice of smart card technology itself is quite interesting. As you said, it was really the initial premise of Ledger, which is let's use this smart card technology, which has been around for tens of years. It's in dozens of billions of applications already, everything from credit cards, passports, other kinds of secure hardware. So, you have, you're choosing a very proven secure circuit and you're applying that to, instead of the secrets of the bank or the government, the secrets of the user on, in a programmable environment, to your point also in an environment where, anyone can build an application. I mean, so I think there's also the choice of that secure element, and you're choosing something which has been hardened, if I'm not mistaken, over tens of years and dozens of billions of applications, correct?
Yeah, totally. Like the smart card technology was invented a long time ago. I think it was in 1978, so a very, very long time ago. And then the technology evolved during these years. And the point for this technology was really security. And the idea was always to raise the bar for security. And what happened is really a cat and mouse game where attackers finally found some vulnerabilities, and then the vendors improved the security of their devices. And you mentioned like banking application, ID is another one, pay TV was another one, also phone cards. There were plenty of applications using smart cards. And what was really different is the fact that in this case, the user was potentially the attacker. Because the secret that were inside the smart cards were not the user secret, but the company secret, the bank secret, the nation state secret. So that's why they really started to create something very hardened against physical attack, because they knew that the user that has the card in mind, in hand, has a physical access, and he has an incentive to try to break it in order to not paying the service and this kind of thing. So this is really what they did. And what we did at Ledger was leveraging the technology, the fact that this is the most secure technology out there. And even with in a context where the attacker has a physical access. But what we change is the fact that the secrets that are inside the secure element are not the bank's, the company, the state's secrets. They are the user secrets. So this is really what we did, and what completely reverse the way we are handling smart cards.
Whenever I point this fact out to people, this is where they get kind of amazed when they actually kind of understand it. When I say, look, this is the same chip which is in your credit card. We're looking at Stacks, and Stacks is actually kind of an incredible example of it, because you realize that this is the same chip which is inside your credit card, but that chip is being used to power this touchscreen. And that's what we mean when we say this is the world's first secure touchscreen, because, again, please correct me if I'm factually incorrect here, but, other solutions which are hardware wallets, with touchscreens, they might be using a touchscreen, but they're using a less secure architecture to power that touchscreen than we are, where with Ledger, you actually have more secure visualization of your transaction and more secure, approval of your transaction through your user input than are in the other architectures that are out there. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's totally correct. The other hardware wallets in the space are using MCU, a general purpose MCU. So this is a small microcontroller units that are usually used for anything. Like this is the same MCU that you have in your remote controller for your TV, the same MCU that you have in your toaster if you have some electronic inside, on your oven. Like, there are electronics everywhere, and what they use is there's the chip circuit that are a general purpose MCU. You can do anything with them. You load your code inside, and then you can build the system you want. So this is what the other wallet are doing when it comes to creating hardware wallet. There are some shade of gray depending on the vendor, but no one is using smart cards, and no one is using smart cards the way we are using them.
Okay, so let's come back to how this impacts the reality of open source. So as you said, the vast majority of Ledger's code is open source or reviewable by whomever, and the repositories are out there, so people will have a kind of a definitive blog post to go with this as well, that will give people links to all that code if they'd like to dig into it and review it. And so if I understand correctly, what you're saying is we've made the trade-off to say that leveraging the smart card technology, which is proven over tens of years through dozens of billions of secure applications, and using that to really drive the entire system, meaning the generation of the key, the storage of the key, any cryptographic operations that are done, as well as the driving of the display and the touch. That we believe that is the best architecture. We believe that these are the most secure chips that you could possibly use in this application. But it does mean that we can't achieve 100% open source. And why is that? And what exactly code is that is not reviewable via our GitHub or some other means?
What we need to understand is the fact that secure element vendors have invested billions over the last 40 years in order to always improve the security of their smart cards technology, and to create specific IP, because it's difficult to have like very secure devices in a context where the attacker has the circuit in mind. So in the hand, you have to imagine that you have a physical safe, and the attacker has the safe in his hand, and he can do anything to try to extract the secret from the safe. So the problem to solve is incredibly complex, and the secure element vendor and manufacturer have spent like billions. I've spent 40 years, a lot of engineers in research and creating this IP. And this is something very difficult. And at the end, there are very few secure element vendors in the world. You have like NXP, Infineon, Samsung, ST, and this is basically the list. Probably a few small others, but that's it. Because it's very difficult to create this secure element. And what makes them also secure is the fact that this company goes through security evaluation in order to obtain security certification. So this is not just a claim. It's not like they claim to be secure. Like someone, like a group of people have verified that they are actually secure, and they are verifying plenty of things. They are verifying that with a physical access, it's very difficult to break the circuit, but they also verify that the supply chain is secure. The different requirements you have when it comes to protecting the code, protecting the supply chain, and so on, is very, very strong, and it's very difficult to achieve this level of security when it comes to the supply chain. This is the same for testing. For a security evaluation takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money, and then you can obtain the certification if you have fulfilled everything. So this is really what they have created over the years, and this is really what makes a secure element secure. This is not just a claim; like they have like kind of proven it. What they want to do also now is protecting their IP. They don't want anyone to go after them and say, okay, now I will build the new secure element company. I will just copy what ST and NXP has done and then create my own secure element. They don't want this. Obviously, they want to defend against this. And in order to defend against this, they don't want their IP to be disclosed. And the thing is, when you are using a secure element, the way we are using secure element, we are loading our code inside the circuit, and our code is also dependent from the circuit, because inside the secure element, there are plenty of countermeasures that are in charge of detecting a potential physical attack, detecting potential software attacks, reacting after these attacks. And like there are plenty of such countermeasures. If you are aware of like side channel attacks, where you are trying to measure the power consumption or the timing of the circuit while it's running in order to deduce the information about the secret. Like in the secure element, there are countermeasures preventing these attacks. The same applies with fault attacks when it comes to creating glitches or doing laser attack and so on. And there are a lot of countermeasures inside the circuit that are preventing these attacks. And our code, part of our operating system code, is leveraging these countermeasures. So we are monitoring the different sensors of the circuit periodically. We are tweaking the different countermeasures in order to have a high level of noise, preventing measuring the power supply. We are monitoring all the sensors activities, and if something wrong seems to have happened, then we are taking appropriate measure, and in the worst case will be wiping your seed. Like if the operating system is thinking that physical attack is happening on your device, the operating system will trigger the wipe of your seed. This is the ultimate, one of the ultimate countermeasures that we have implemented. So what I want to explain is the fact that our operating system is leveraging these countermeasures. That are there are plenty of them. I don't detail all of them, but this is just to give an insight of what's inside. This is really what it is about. And if we were open sourcing this part of the operating system, we would give plenty of information on how the circuit works, what are those countermeasures, how they are implemented, and so on. And this is the IP of our secure element manufacturer, our secure element vendor. So the secure element vendor prevent us to do so, because you want to protect its IP. This is really what it is about.
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting because as I hear you talking, what comes to mind is, okay, we are a security company. The business that we're in is securing your seed and making sure that you can do operations with your device securely. That's the business that we're in. That's the promise that we make to customers. I think that's the reason why I personally find the open source FUD so frustrating and annoying, because it's people who are effectively asking us to sacrifice security, for really what is, and they're actually asking us to make our device less secure. But we wish you could be more like your less secure competition, is another way of and that's the part that is kind of extraordinary to me, and where I think it really does amount to pure FUD, because I don't think it's actually what people want from us. I think what people actually want from Ledger is to have the most secure hardware wallet on the planet. And I think it's sort of underappreciated that this use of smart card technology, and also really pushing the user experience. I like holding my stacks in my hand and noticing that it's basically the same size as my credit card. It uses the same chip as my credit card, yet where that I couldn't do anything if I wanted to change the way my credit card functioned. I couldn't even update the operating system if I wanted to. There's no way to do that. It's exactly the opposite with my stacks, where I actually have, on top of that same security, that same smart card technology, I have an open platform, as you said, operating system, where anyone can develop an application, and that application obviously could be a new blockchain. It could also be just an enterprise security application. Or the way that we as a team have invented or have developed the security key application to take advantage of FIDO2 and what that brings with passkeys and 2FA. So here's something that has it's just a security application. And if you're doing a security application, then you obviously want the most secure solution. So maybe we've already gone into a bit of the technical detail there. I think what might be interesting would be to compare it to other choices that have been made in the market. So let's skip over some of the things that we all know are kind of different class. So there's obviously, you can put your crypto on an exchange, but that's not your keys and not your coins. So we can skip that. You could have your crypto in a software wallet, and that's obviously not secure for a number of reasons. As you said at the very beginning, your phone is not secure and not really capable of being secure. There's not something that some software company is magically going to do tomorrow that really improves meaningfully the security of a software wallet. I think those are worth mentioning, though, because the vast majority of people are in that situation. So I think it's also, we kind of have this circular conversation in social media where we're arguing about one hardware wallet versus another, when most crypto owners are on exchanges and in software wallets. So I think it's nice just to remember that if there are 500 million people in crypto, there are probably 10 million people that are using hardware. So we should all just be aware that collectively our job is to get people into secure self-custody, which does mean hardware. But now let's look at just the hardware trade-offs that you've made. So we've talked a little bit about that. So let me just summarize again. Our architecture leverages smart card technology. The vast majority of what we do is open source, and we'll provide and reviewable code. So we'll provide links to that so people can get to it, and that goes from what is loaded into your Ledger device all the way out to Ledger Live and the other software that we build, including plugins. And I think maybe in a bit we can talk about open source roadmap and what's beyond where we already are. But what are some of the other architecture choices on the market? We have devices that don't have secure screens at all. And then we have devices with screens and devices with touch screens, which are a less secure architecture than Ledger. So maybe you could explain some of the other things that are in the market and why we've made the decisions we've made architecturally.
Yeah, totally. So maybe just to to explain high level what's the architecture within Ledger devices. So we have the smart card technology. Inside the smart card technology, we are loading our own operating system, and this operating system is doing a bunch of things. First of all, it provides a cryptographic toolbox that allows application to call those cryptographic services in order to do signature, to do hashes, to do encryption, this kind of thing. The operating system also is managing the different application running on top of the operating system. Also, it is able to create a secure channel to our HSM. HSM stands for Hardware Security Module, and this is secure hardware that we have on our backend, allowing to do operating system upgrades and this kind of thing. And it also allows the device to prove to the HSM it's a genuine one, and vice versa. So this is a mutual authentication. And then you have the different application, and all the applications are already open source. Most of them have been written by the community, and the community is maintaining this application. Ledger is maintaining the Bitcoin application, Ethereum application, and security key application. But again, the operating system is really like a general. You can build what you want because it's an open platform, and this is completely unique in the smart card world. This is the only smart card where you can build your own native code and running it inside a smart card. There is no other things like that in the space.
That alone is pretty extraordinary. Like, I just like that fact personally, that you have, again, dozens of billions of these smart cards out there, and Ledger are the only ones that are over-the-air upgradable. just to say that, it's quite unique to have an operating system and an application development environment on smart card technology. And this is a technology that's again been around since 1978, and is in billions upon billions of devices. So I just think it's for kind of understanding what makes Ledger unique. It's exciting. And I also think that when you realize that, again, when I explain to people that the chip in your credit card is powering that screen that they're seeing on stacks, there's like a different look on their face. It was funny because I was just with somebody who's prominent in the crypto podcast and YouTube community last week, and he said, "No, but there's obviously another chip and a coprocessor in there." And I was like, "No, there isn't." I could see the realization cross his face.
Totally, this is something unique, and it's important to emphasize it. When you talk with the people working in the smart card for banks and so on, and you are explaining this, they're like, "Seriously, you're doing this? Wow, this is impressive." For them.
I remember it was a couple of years ago now, we had that conversation. We shouldn't say who, but with one of the biggest chip manufacturers in the world. And they were like, "Oh, we do plenty of security." And then we showed them our architecture, and they went, "Oh wow, you guys are serious about security." We said, "Yes,
that's true.
We're that serious."
I remember this conversation. Yes, and already most of it is already open source. When you consider the 150 apps we have, all of them are open source. The cryptographic toolbox is open source, so you can check the way we are implementing cryptography, and please do it. If ever you find something to improve, just tell us. This is what we do when we have improvement proposal. Also, we have something that we call the dashboard. The dashboard is the application running on top of the device when you don't have an application launch. This dashboard is almost fully open source and soon completely open source. What is not yet is everything that is really close to the circuit. So when we are using the hardware to do hardware acceleration, to do AES, to do asymmetric cryptography, but the low level and to leverage the different countermeasure, this is not open source. And we also have like the firmware upgrade part and all of this that is not open source yet, but this part will be open source. What we won't ever open source is everything related to the HAL, like very low level code that is directly talking to the different peripherals, leveraging the countermeasure. This part won't ever be open source because of what I explained before.
And that's because we're also contractually unable to open source that.
Totally. But all the rest will be open source, and as of now, most of it is already open source. Let's be honest about that. And finally, like leveraging smart card is really important in order to have like integrity guarantee. When you are running the code inside your device, you have like 100% guarantee that the code that is running on the device is the one that is intended to, because it's impossible to tamper with. When I say impossible, I will say like extremely difficult to tamper with the device so that you can force it to run another code. And having strong guarantee on what kind of code is running on your device, I think is the most important. Because if you have like an open source firmware, you load it on your device and you have no clue if the firmware that is running on your device is the one that you compiled, what's the benefit at the end? So there was absolutely no benefit. With smart cards, with smart card technology, you have this guarantee. And it's guaranteed by secure hardware and cryptography. So this is the best of both worlds.
Isn't it true that also because of that bit, there is actually a security advantage as well? So in addition to what you're describing with the kind of inherent advantages to smart card technology, we've used this to implement a genuine check, so that when you connect your device, you can be sure that you're dealing with genuine Ledger hardware.
Exactly, and this is something you can't do with like other hardware wallet. Why? Because you take one of those other hardware wallets, you take it in your lab, you extract the secret that allows you to do the genuine check, and then you can manufacture as many fake backdoored such devices as you want. And so that's why you can't do a genuine check with those other devices. Creating fake and backdoored devices is incredibly easy just because of the architecture.
Okay, so maybe if you could talk about some of the other architectures that you see on the market, and why are each of those below Ledger's security standards and not a direction that we would go?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, you have hardware devices without screen. Frankly, I don't get the point, because what you have is a signature oracle. Signature oracle means that you have a machine, you ask it to sign something, and it will sign something. So that means that the software that is sending the stuff to sign, if this software is compromised, your device without screen will sign it, because it has no way to understand if the stuff that you ask it to sign is legitimate or not.
So give us an example of a real world attack vector on a device with no screen.
Totally. So I have a software wallet on my phone, and in order to sign, I need a card. I need to tap with my card in order to sign a transaction. Then I'd like to send 0.1 ETH to you. This is your lucky day. But the software that is running on my mobile phone is compromised for any reason, because it's very easy. So I will input that I want to send 0.1 Ethereum to your address, but the software will change the whole transaction without me being able to notify it, to notice it, to understand it. And then as soon as I will tap with my card, where there is no screen, then the card will sign the transaction the compromised app ask it to sign. So, for instance, it will ask the card to sign a transaction, giving away my full wallet, not to you, but to the attacker.
What's the point of having a hardware wallet at that point is sort of my question, because you're still now reliant on your software not being compromised.
You're secure as long as you don't use it. This is the point.
Right.
But as soon as you use it, then you are in the danger zone. So this is why it's really paramount to have a secure display and secure input on your screen. So this will be like one class of architecture. Then you have the different wallets where there is no secure element at all. And in this case, you have different issues. The first one is if an attacker steals your device, then he will extract the seed and your money is gone, and there is nothing you can do. And we have proven in the past that it's not very difficult. If you give such devices to the dungeon, they can extract your seed within a few minutes. So and without expensive materials. So this is something you need to have in mind. Also, for these wallets and others, you have no integrity guarantee. And this is really important to have in mind. That means that I have no doubt that Trezor, Coldcard, SafePal have good, are not attackers, but if there is something in their supply chain or in the transport from their premises to yours, if something happens, if the attacker gets an access to that, then he will be able to put a backdoor in the circuit very easily. And when you receive the device, you have no way to distinguish this from this backdoor device from a legitimate one. And then you will load code. You will think it's the right one running on the device, but as the architecture doesn't allow to have this integrity guarantee, you will run a backdoor firmware, and you have no way to know it. So this part is also really, really important. And also, there is something that we need to keep in mind. Even if there's hardware wallet manufacturer claims they are 100% open source and this kind of thing, at the end, this is not really true. Let me explain why. First of all, if you are only using a general purpose MCU, okay, you will load your code, but there is already some code inside the MCU. There is some code for HAL, again, like a low-level library. There is some code for the bootloader. There is some code that you don't even know that it's inside because the MCU is not open source and the manufacturer has implemented what you want. And you have to trust the manufacturer at the end, and you have to trust that this code is correct. So at least for that, even if everything is working well in the supply chain and so on, there is some code running on the MCU, and that is actually runs during at least during the boot phase. That is not open source, and that is not that has not been developed by Trezor, Coldcard, and all those guys. So this is the first thing. And also, now, some of these hardware wallet manufacturers have started using secure element. At least this is what they claim. But this is not smart card technology. What they are using is really more secure memory and this kind of thing. This is a dedicated chip that will stores secret in order to secure the seed in case the device is stolen. First of all, these secure memory are not that secure. And again, the dungeon has proven this several times. They were able to extract the secret from this secure memory. And secondly, the secure memory are completely closed source. They are completely a black box. So even the hardware manufacturer has no ID, no clue on what's running in this secure memory. So this is the kind of problem you have. And finally, when it comes to generating seed, generating secret, secure element, again, they are designed for that. Inside these devices, you have TRNG, True Random Number Generator. This is a piece of hardware that is dedicated to generate a secret that has been evaluated by a third-party laboratory that is certified, and you have strong guarantee that the numbers that are generated by this piece of hardware cannot be distinguished from true random. So this is what we call the true random number generator. And in general purpose MCU, you have a random number generator, but they don't have such properties. So maybe they are good, maybe they are not. You just they were just not tested against this. So this is an issue. And the second issue you have is when the device is running cryptography, it's running the cryptography in the MCU, in this little circuit that is usually implemented within your TV remote controller. So again, this MCU can implement cryptography. There is no way. There is no challenge for that. But the problem is you don't have the security guarantee that are provided by a secure element in this case. So these are the main differences you have. So in summary, in this case, you're not even 100% open source. And in terms of security, you are very far away from what we have with Ledger technology.
I think I appreciate you saying it, and I do hope that people listen to what you have to say, because, and this is also why, I don't say that, what we hear in social media is FUD lightly. There are really deserved criticisms often, right? But this is why I think it's important. I think that it's unfortunate that some people are kind of taking advantage of the fact that people don't really have a deep understanding of what security is to kind of, to simply kind of spread, sort of disinformation. Again, and I think what I would like to do here is to just put facts out there. And I think that, you're excellent at giving us those facts and those trade-offs. Obviously, neither of us are unbiased or, are totally objective, but I think that your opinion here matters quite a bit, because you could have chosen these other ways of building, say, ledger stacks, or nano devices, but you didn't. You made this trade-off to say, okay, even as somebody who cares deeply about open source, in the world, my job here is the best security. And I believe the best security with the best trade-offs is, the majority of the code being open source, and then, the seed generation, the protection, the cryptography, the control of the input and output being done with this secure smart card proven technology. And I think to me, it's an example of what I always say about stacks, where I can see through the development that if Tony Fadell and his team would have developed this on their own, there are places, even when, we received the display driver from the screen manufacturer, there was a surprise on the very experienced hardware developer side that we would not use that code because we don't know where it came from. We don't know who wrote it, but no, we would be rewriting that code, from scratch ourselves and having it run, from the secure element. There's an attention to security by design at every, step that I see your team, making that trade-off and choosing security at every, juncture, and not compromising and not taking shortcuts. So, I do find it a bit painful and maybe even offensive when people sort of, flippantly say, yeah, but it's not open source. It's like, okay, well, if somebody has clearly understood what you just said, then I don't think that they would keep saying that, because what they're really saying is, I prefer more open source, less security.
Yeah, and it's even more frustrating when you know what it takes to use a secure element. Like, everything is more complex. You have to manage your supply chain because you have these requirements from the manufacturer, and you have all the constraints of a secure element. Secure element is a very small chip with plenty of countermeasures to manage precisely. And you have plenty of constraints in terms of RAM, in terms of flash, in terms of GPIO. You have very, very little attack surface, so that you have very little GPIO to use. You have very little RAM, very little flash. Everything is very constrained, and you have to manage all these countermeasures. And the thing is, with countermeasure, you have to be cautious, because if you detect too many attacks, then the device thinks it's under attack every time, while it's not the case. And on the opposite, you don't want to be too permissive because you want to detect real attacks. And all of these takes plenty of time, and all of this is full of constraints. So it would be like far more easy to use a general purpose MCU. But this is not what we want to do. We don't want to compromise with security.
Thank you. I think it's a great explanation of why really using anything else other than Ledger is a compromise. And I thank you for that, because I think it makes my job much easier. Just trying to sell Coke instead of Pepsi is much harder. Of course, the hard job is the one that we're doing here, is to get people to understand and appreciate those differences, so that it's something that they actually value. I think that the proof is in the pudding, as they say. So to wrap up, maybe we just turn toward the future, because you've referenced a couple times here that there are things that are not yet open source that will be. I know that there are some efforts, in the community to build an open source secure element. So I'm curious, A, what's on Ledger's roadmap, and B, where do you see this secure hardware going, over in the coming years, and will we get an open source secure element? What do you think?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, again, most of the code running on your device, on your Ledger device, is already open source, and there is still a tiny part that is not. One concern the way we are managing the genuine check, the secure channel with the backend, and the application management. And this part will be open source on the long run. And another part concerns a small part of the dashboard. It will be open source also. Another part concerns the low-level HAL that talks directly with the circuit itself, talks with the countermeasure and so on. And this part won't ever be open source just because we can't. So at the end, what we really target is something that looks like the Raspberry Pi model, for those who know it, where you have a small kernel and bootloader that is only in charge of loading the firmware that is open source and signed. And this little kernel and bootloader verifies that this firmware is correct and will install it. So this is really the model that we are targeting. It requires some re-architecture, and this is already ongoing. We have already open source or open to review plenty of code, and we are continuing this. And by the way, it's great that things are open source, but it's even better if people are auditing the code and giving us some feedback. So far, we didn't get much feedback from the community. But we have a bounty program, but we are running internal security audit. We are running external security audit. So having open source is great for allowing people to audit, but it's better if you have actual audit. And we have actual audit to verify that our security is what we want. But also we have external audit that verifies that we don't implement backdoor in our devices, and they are signing messages for that. Again, the idea is really to make sure that the users don't have to trust us too much. At the end, they will have to trust us, because this is the way it works. When you are using a wallet, software, hardware, or whatever, you are trusting the wallet vendor. There is no choice for that, but we are trying to minimize distrust as much as we can, and it goes with open sourcing code. It goes with doing third-party security audit, with also doing internal security audit, and also doing verification that we don't implement backdoor in our devices, and this is something we have implemented recently. So this is for the roadmap, continuing to go open source and providing more auditability. And when it comes to building our own open source secure element, this is something that we have thought about in the past. And because when you think about it, the part that is NDA related, if we don't want to have this requirement, this constraint, we could say, okay, we will build our own secure element, and then we will be able to open source everything. It's a good idea on paper, but I think it's a little bit wishful thinking because of several reasons. The first one is like building a secure element that is actually secure is really difficult. As I said, that there are only 4 to 5 companies in the world that can do that. It requires plenty of money, plenty of time, and plenty of expertise. And as I said, like they have this expertise, and also they have plenty of patents, allowing them to protect their secure IP. So it's extremely difficult. So this is the first thing. Difficult in terms of time, resources, IP, patent, all of this. And secondly, I think this is the main argument. The thing is, when you have the secret in your hand and you have the code on your GitHub, you have actually no guarantee, no way to be sure that the code that has been used to create the secret is the one you are auditing. This is simply impossible, and it's impossible for various reasons. The code is what we call the RTL, so Verilog or VHDL code. So this is the code. Then you will synthesize this code with proprietary software. Then you will obtain what we call the netlist, and then you go through like different steps of what we call EDA, like electronic design automation. Like so you have different steps. And at the end of this process, what you obtain is a file that is called GGS2. But you have actually no way to be sure that the Verilog you use at the beginning correspond to the GGS2, because you have plenty of proprietary software in the middle, and you have no way to understand what's the matching between all the steps. So this is already the first thing. And this GGS2, you will send it to the fab, the actually factory that will manufacture the circuit. They will build masks. So the mask is a process in the lithography process to create circuit. Again, you have no way to be sure that the mask corresponds to the GGS2 that you send. And with this mask, they will manufacture the circuit on wafers. The wafers are like some disk where, and in this disk you have like thousands of circuits, and then you will cut the circuit, and then you will gather the circuit, test them, and send them to your customers. But with this circuit and the Verilog that you were, or that was at the beginning, you have absolutely no way to be sure that these two things are the same, are corresponding. So, okay, your Verilog is open source, but is your circuit open source? I don't think so. You didn't earn any guarantee in this process.
You know, it's interesting. Is what's clear to me is that you and the security team and the engineering team at Ledger are focused on security, and you eschew and say no to security theater whenever it is presented. And I think that, you know, the reality is that some people out there are fine with security theater. And what they want from an initiative like this, you know, isn't actual security. It's the ability to have a marketing message. You know, so I think that, again, I consider myself quite lucky to have the products that you and the team have designed to talk about. You know, because I think, you have. I think I can actually say that anything else is a compromise, right? Whether I'm on a custodian or I'm in a software wallet or I'm in another hardware wallet, there isn't anything with an equivalent level of security yet on the market. That's not to say that it will never come. I'm sure someday it will. But as it stands right now, today in 2024, with stacks hitting the market and more coming from Ledger this year and actually next year as well, you and I know, you and I have a bit of a peek into the future. That people who are using Ledger can truly know that they are that they're coming. They're using a device that was created, or devices that were created by a team that doesn't compromise when it comes to security. Period. And I think that I just want to say thank you. And thank you for explaining this. These are, these are difficult topics. And I think, the reality is a lot of people won't take the time to dig in. It's much easier to say, to spread open source FUD than it is to actually review code and be helpful. That's clear. So people will continue to do that. We're not going to stop them, but hopefully what we can do is to just put more information into the hands of a truly thoughtful consumer, so that people can do their own research and make an informed decision.
The truth is on our side. Thank you for having me.